A werewolf shifter romance written by Catherine Stewart. Prologue. They say a fated mate's bond is a song only two souls can hear. A melody written in starlight. Ours was a symphony. Rafe. His name was a heartbeat. My heartbeat. His touch, a wildfire, soothing even as it consumed. He was an alpha in waiting, all fierce protection and tender, knowing glances, his amber eyes mirroring the wild, devoted love in my own. Our future, it stretched before us. Bright, boundless, vast as the forest our pack called home. We were everything to each other. The air I breathed, the very ground beneath his paws. But even the most sacred songs can be silenced by a discordant note, a shadow that looks like a brother, a whisper that tastes like betrayal. There was a time before the moon turned witness to a theft more cruel than any death, when I believed our love was a fortress, unbreakable, eternal. I remember the scent of pine and winter earth, his laughter echoing through sun-dappled clearings, the possessive warmth of his hand in mine. I remember, before the echo faded, before the silence screamed where his memory used to be, before I learned that even the truest love can be stolen, and that sometimes, to reclaim it, you have to become a storm yourself. The sun peeked through the tall pine trees, painting streaks of gold across the cozy log cabin. Lena Petrovich snuggled deeper, oh so much deeper, into Rafe Blackfang's strong arms. His warm breath tickled her ear, and the smell of him, like pine needles after a rainstorm and something wild, something safe all at once. It made her smile. This was her favorite way to wake up. "Morning, sleepy wolf," she whispered, her fingertip tracing the line of his jaw, so strong, so dear. Her goal was simple, just to enjoy this perfect moment, this perfect love. She felt so safe here, like nothing bad could ever touch them. Rafe's amber eyes, the color of warm honey, her honey, fluttered open. A slow, lazy smile spread across his face when he saw her. "Morning, my sunshine," he rumbled, his voice thick with sleep, a delicious sound that vibrated right through her. He nuzzled her neck, and a happy sigh escaped Lena. Pure bliss. "Best dream ever," he mumbled into her skin. "You were there." Lena giggled, a light, airy sound. "I'm always here, silly." He pulled her closer, and their legs tangled under the soft quilt. "So," Rafe began, propping himself up on an elbow, his gaze full of a love so deep it stole her breath. "Big plans today, my brilliant scholar? More digging into those old pack stories?" He always encouraged her research into the local werewolf folklore, even the bits that made the older pack members grumble. Perhaps it was fate, that her studies had led her right to him, her fated mate. Lena nodded, her heart feeling full, so wonderfully full. "Actually, yes. I think I'm close to understanding that old tale about the moonstone amulet, the one said to amplify a true mate's bond. Her current desire? To uncover all the secrets of their world, to share them with Rafe, and to build their future together. They were already planning their mating ceremony, a big celebration for the whole Blackfang pack. Deep down, she knew the truth. Their love was special, a once-in-a-generation kind of bond. Not only that, she believed their love was a fortress, strong enough to withstand anything. "An amulet to make us even closer?" Rafe chuckled, his eyes sparkling, truly sparkling. "I didn't think that was possible, Lena love." He leaned in and kissed her softly, a kiss that tasted like fresh coffee and forever. Oh, forever. In that moment, that single, perfect moment, Lena felt like the luckiest woman alive. Her world made sense. It was logical. It was filled with love, and the promise of their future together. And then, as if remembering something, Rafe said, "Don't forget the pack gathering tonight. Damian will be there. His voice held a slight, almost imperceptible shift. Try to be nice to my wayward twin, eh? Lena's smile tightened, just a tiny bit. Damian, Rafe's identical twin brother. He was always around. That night, the pack gathering was in full swing. Laughter, bright, joyful laughter, and the smell of roasting meat filled the air around a massive bonfire that crackled and spit sparks into the twilight sky. Wolves in their human forms chatted. Children chased each other, their happy yips echoing through the trees, a symphony of pack life. Lena, holding Rafe's hand tightly, felt a warm glow spread through her. Her goal was just to soak it all in. The joy, the community, the feeling of belonging. Oh, she was so happy. Rafe, her magnificent Rafe, stood beside her, his presence a solid, comforting anchor. He was a natural leader, even if he wasn't alpha yet. And the pack? They adored him. They were the golden couple. Everyone said so. From there, Damian sauntered over, a charming smile plastered on his face. He looked exactly like Rafe. Same amber eyes, same strong build. But there was always something different in his gaze. Something Lena couldn't quite name. Something that made her shiver sometimes. "Brother! Lena, my lovely!" Damian boomed, pulling Rafe into a one-armed hug and giving Lena a theatrical wink. Too much. "To the happy couple, may your days be long and your pups many." Some wolves chuckled. Rafe clapped Damian on the back. "Thanks, Damian. Good to see you." Simple, honest. So Rafe. Damian's eyes, however, lingered on Lena a moment too long. A beat, then another. "Truly, Rafe," he continued, his voice a little too smooth, like honey mixed with something else. "Lena is a remarkable find. Almost too good for a rough-around-the-edges wolf like you." He chuckled then, as if he'd made the world's greatest joke. Lena felt a prickle of unease, a tiny disturbance in her perfect happiness. No matter how hard she tried, she couldn't quite shake the feeling that Damian's compliments were like pretty flowers with thorns hidden underneath. She forced a polite smile. "Damian, you're too kind." What followed was Rafe's arm tightening around her waist, a silent, possessive gesture that made her heart flutter. Protective. Mine. He might not see the edge in Damian's words, but his wolf always knew she was his. "Just speaking the truth, my dear," Damian said, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. That was the thing, wasn't it? Moments later, he added, "I was just chatting with Maeve, you know. Wonderful woman." Wonderful. Lena doubted that. "She's been advising me on some pack prosperity initiatives. Says the stars are aligning for big changes." Rafe frowned slightly, a little furrow between his brows. "Maeve? That old hedge witch? What kind of initiatives?" Damian just shrugged, that charming smile back in place. Too quick, too practiced. "Oh, you know, old traditions, forgotten pathways to power. She's quite insightful." Before she could move, before she could even process the sudden chill that ran down her spine despite the warmth of the bonfire, Lena thought of her mother's journals. Maeve. The name was there, linked to whispers of dark magic and broken vows. But she pushed the thought away. No. It was probably just Damian being dramatic. As usual. Right? The next afternoon, Lena wandered near the edge of the Blackfang territory. Sunlight dappled through the leaves and the air smelled of damp earth and pine, a scent that usually calmed her. Her goal today? To gather some specific herbs for her research. Silverleaf, moon petal, said to grow only in the oldest parts of the forest. She was humming softly, a melody Rafe often whistled, her mind full of ancient lore and the comforting thought of dinner with him later. Soon after she'd found a good patch of moon petal, she heard voices. Hushed, intense, wrong. Curiosity, a scholar's constant companion, her blessing and her curse, pulled her closer, as if pulled by an invisible string. She crept towards a thicket of ancient oaks, peering through the leaves. Her breath caught. It was Damian. And with him, an older woman with eyes as dark and knowing as the forest itself. Maeve, no doubt. They weren't just chatting. Oh no. Their heads were bent close together, and the air around them, it seemed to crackle with a strange, almost visible energy. Lena's heart began to pound, a frantic drum against her ribs. She didn't know what scared her more. The look on Damian's face, a hungry, ambitious gleam she'd never seen so clearly, or the way Maeve's lips twisted as she spoke, like a predator savoring a secret. Lena could only catch fragments of their conversation, like pieces of a disturbing puzzle. The alignment must be precise, Maeve was saying, her voice a dry rustle like autumn leaves. To break what cannot be shared. Damian's voice was lower, urgent. A bond rewritten. He will not even remember. Lena pressed her hand to her mouth, a cold dread seeping into her bones. What bond? Whose memory? Deep down, she knew the truth, or a terrifying sliver of it. This wasn't about pack prosperity. This was something dark, something targeted. At Rafe? At them? Without warning, crack! A twig snapped under Lena's foot. The voices stopped. Silence. Heavy, suffocating. Her body moved on instinct. She ducked lower, heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. As the silence stretched, seeming to last an eternity, she prayed. Please, don't let them have heard. Please. Eventually, Damian emerged from the oaks alone, whistling a jaunty tune. He stopped dead when he saw her. His eyes, so like Rafe's, yet so chillingly different, narrowed for a split second before his charming mask slid back into place. Lena, fancy meeting you here. Lost, my dear? His voice was smooth as silk, but his smile? It was a razor's edge. The air thickened around them. She managed a shaky, no, Damian, just research. In that moment, that terrifying, clarifying moment, the dread she'd felt earlier solidified into a cold, hard knot in her stomach. This was more than just sibling rivalry, more than ambition. This was dangerous, deadly. The dread that had settled in Lena's stomach like a cold stone after her encounter with Damian in the woods only grew heavier. Heavier. As the moon outside her window thinned to a sliver, a dark omen in the velvet sky. That night, a strange energy pulsed through the packlands, a thrumming undercurrent that made the hairs on her arms stand up. Rafe had been restless all evening, his amber eyes clouded with an anxiety he couldn't name, his wolf pacing beneath his skin. He'd held her close, so close, as if afraid she might vanish. Something's not right, Lena love, he'd murmured, his voice rough with unease, his familiar scent of pine and winter earth tinged with something sharp, like ozone before a storm. Her goal was to soothe him, to reassure him and herself that everything was fine. But then, a bone-chilling howl ripped through the forest, not a pack call, but something else, twisted, painful. Rafe stiffened, a low grrrl vibrating in his chest. Stay here, he commanded, his alpha instinct flaring, and then he was gone, a blur vanishing into the moon-shadowed trees. Lena waited, her heart a frantic drum. With every heartbeat, the silence stretched, becoming unbearable. She couldn't just stay put, not when that howl had sounded like a soul being torn apart, as if pulled by a string. She grabbed a shawl and ran out, her own goal shifting to finding Rafe, to making sure he was okay. She followed the lingering, strange scent of burnt herbs and something metallic, a trail leading deeper into the ancient part of the woods, towards a clearing she knew was seldom used, a place whispered to hold old volatile magic. What followed was a scene from her darkest nightmares. Maeve stood before a crudely drawn circle on the earth, her arms raised, chanting in a language that slithered and bit at the air. Damian was there too, his face alight with a terrifying, ecstatic triumph. And Rafe. Oh, Rafe. He was on his knees within the circle, his head thrown back, his body convulsing as tendrils of sickly green light, like venomous snakes, wrapped around him, seeming to pull something vital from his very core. Lena screamed his name, a raw, desperate sound. Her immediate goal was to reach him, to stop this horror. Without thinking, she lunged forward. But Maeve just smirked, a flick of her wrist sending Lena flying backwards as if swatted by an invisible giant hand. She landed hard, the air knocked from her lungs. Damian laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. "Too late, little scholar," he jeered. "The bond is being recalibrated." The green light around Rafe intensified. Then, with a sickening snap, it vanished, and Rafe crumpled to the ground, still as death, in the span of a breath. Maeve and Damian were gone, melting into the shadows as if they were never there. Lena scrambled to Rafe's side, her hands shaking so violently she could barely touch him. "Rafe! Rafe! My love! Wake up!" His chest rose and fell, shallowly. Moments later, his eyelids fluttered, those beautiful amber eyes, her amber eyes, focused on her, and then looked right through her. Blank. Empty. There was no recognition, no love, nothing. Just a void. The man she loved, the man whose soul was twinned with hers, was gone. Just like that, everything changed. Her world didn't just tilt, it shattered into a million ice-cold pieces. Damian found them there, his face a perfect mask of concern. "Lena? What happened? Is Rafe—" He knelt, his voice laced with feigned panic. Lena could only stare at Rafe, her own voice trapped in her throat. Rafe stirred, pushing himself up, his gaze sweeping over Lena with a confused frown. Who are you?" he asked, his voice hoarse, unfamiliar. Her heart skipped, then seemed to stop altogether. "Who are you?" The words were a physical blow. "What's worse," Damian quickly took control. "Brother, you've had a shock, a terrible accident in the woods. You must rest." He helped Rafe to his feet, shooting Lena a look that was both a warning and a victory. He needs quiet, to be away from undue stress. The implication? Clear. Lena was the stress. Because of that? Lena found herself on the outside, watching as Damian led her, Rafe, away. Rafe leaning on his twin, looking back at Lena with that same lost, bewildered expression. In the days that followed, Lena's despair was a living thing, a cold serpent coiling in her chest. Her immediate goal became a desperate, hourly obsession. Make Rafe remember. She tried everything. Everything! She brought him his favorite foods. She read to him from the books they'd shared. She wore the dress he loved, the one the color of summer twilight. No matter how hard she tried, nothing pierced the veil. He'd look at her, sometimes with a flicker of something, a deep ache in his eyes, a furrow in his brow as if trying to recall a forgotten dream. But then Damian would appear. Always Damian. With a gentle hand on Rafe's shoulder, a soothing word, a subtle redirection. "Rafe, you need your rest, brother. Don't let yourself get agitated." He made Lena out to be an overzealous friend, perhaps a little unhinged in her concern. The pack, confused and worried by Rafe's strange detachment and Damian's confident command, began to whisper. Was Rafe truly unwell? Had something broken in him? Truth be told, Lena felt like she was going mad. The Rafe who looked at her was a stranger in her soulmate's body. The core emotional questions screamed at her day and night. How can he not know me? Is our love truly so fragile? To make things worse, she saw the subtle ways Damian was poisoning Rafe's mind against her, twisting her attempts to connect into proof of her instability. Her logical mind, her greatest tool, felt useless against this dark, insidious magic. What was the point of facts when memory itself was a lie? One evening, after another fruitless, heartbreaking attempt to reach Rafe, where he'd flinched from her touch as if burned. Lena stumbled back to their empty cabin. Their cabin, now just hers. The scent of him was fading from the space, replaced by the hollowness of her grief. She collapsed onto the floor, a broken sob finally tearing from her. All her academic knowledge, her understanding of lore, it meant nothing. She had failed. Rafe was lost to her. Maybe it was fate, a cruel, twisted fate. As the silence stretched, broken only by her ragged breaths, her gaze fell upon a small, locked chest tucked under their bed. Her mother's chest. Inside, her mother's journals, filled with whispers of their family lineage, of forgotten magic, of witch blood intertwined with wolf spirit. A new, desperate thought sparked in the darkness of her despair. If logic had failed, perhaps magic was the only answer. In that moment, a new resolve, fragile but fierce, took root. She would not let Damian win. She would fight for Rafe, for their stolen love, even if she had to delve into a world she never knew was hers. Her new immediate goal was clear: understand the magic that broke him, and find the magic to bring him back. In the quiet that followed her vow in the now empty cabin, Lena's world narrowed to a single burning point: Rafe. Her primary goal? To find a way. Any way. To bring him back from the void Damian and Maeve had cast him into. So, she turned to the only legacy her mother had left her: a small, locked chest filled with old journals. The leather was cracked, the pages brittle and smelling of dried herbs, and forgotten secrets. With every heartbeat, her fingers, still trembling from her earlier sobs, fumbled with the ancient lock. Eventually, it sprang open. Inside, nestled amongst pressed flowers and faded ribbons, were the journals, their spidery script detailing a world Lena had only glimpsed in her academic research. A world of true werewolf lore, of fated bonds so powerful they could shape destinies, and of witch blood. Her witch blood, apparently. Passed down her maternal line, a lineage her mother had tried to leave behind. Truth be told, Lena was terrified. This wasn't the neat, catalogued folklore she was used to. This was raw, living magic. Still, she devoured the words, her scholar's mind desperately seeking patterns, clues, anything. She learned of memory curses, intricate and cruel, designed to sever the soul's anchor. And then, she found passages describing hybrid offspring, children of wolf and witch, possessing unique, often volatile, abilities. Could that be her? As if in answer, while reading late one night by flickering candlelight, overcome with a wave of grief for Rafe, the candle flame suddenly flared, impossibly high, then settled. A coincidence? Or something more? Days later, tending the small herb garden outside her cabin, a wilting rosebud she'd absent-mindedly touched seemed to perk up, its color deepening. These small, uncontrolled bursts of something that were both frightening and undeniably real. Her emotional state was a seesaw, a sliver of desperate hope one moment, a plunge into despair the next. Despite that, she couldn't stay hidden forever. She had to see Rafe. Her goal was to observe him, to look for any sign, any flicker, of the man she loved. From there, she began to find subtle ways to be where he might be, always keeping a safe distance, her heart aching with a love he no longer recognized. She saw him often with Damian, his identical twin a constant, suffocating presence by his side. Rafe looked hollow. His magnificent amber eyes, usually so full of fire and love for her, were clouded, lost. His powerful shoulders slumped. His wolf, she knew, was suffering without its mate, without its anchor. The moment their eyes locked once, across a training field, a jolt went through her. So powerful it was like a physical touch. She saw a flicker of something in his gaze, confusion, a deep, buried ache. But then, Damian was there, a hand on Rafe's arm, steering him away. His smile towards Lena a chilling mix of triumph and warning. One afternoon, Damian, with a cruel sort of theater, organized a pack integration exercise, a series of tests designed to supposedly help Rafe readjust. Lena watched from the edge of the clearing, her stomach churning. She didn't know what scared her more, Damian's smug confidence or Rafe's utter detachment. During one particularly rough sparring match Damian set up for Rafe against two eager young pack warriors, Rafe stumbled. One of the warriors, perhaps too caught up in the moment or subtly encouraged by Damian's sharp nod, lunged with a little too much force, his claws extended, aimed where Rafe was most vulnerable. Before she could move, before anyone could react, Lena let out a small, involuntary cry of Rafe's name. Without warning, Rafe, who had seemed almost catatonic moments before, exploded into motion. A guttural snarl ripped from his chest. He moved with a speed and ferocity that stunned everyone, intercepting the warrior, not harming him but shielding the space where Lena instinctively knew she would have been standing if she were by his side, as she always used to be, just like that. The air crackled. Rafe then looked down at his own hands, at the subdued warrior, utterly bewildered by his own explosive, protective reaction. Damian quickly stepped in, clapping Rafe on the back. See, the alpha instincts are still there, just a little unpredictable. Needs careful handling. He shot Lena another pointed look. Her heart skipped. He knew. Her Rafe was still in there, his soul remembering even if his mind did not. This phantom bond, this echo of their love, it gave her a painful, dangerous hope. This shred of hope propelled her next goal, to understand Maeve's specific magic. If Maeve wove the curse, Maeve held the key to unwinding it. Following a nearly invisible trail, shown in one of her mother's coded maps, Lena found herself deep in the oldest, most shadowed part of the Blackfang woods, a place even the wolves usually avoided. The air here was different, heavy, thick with the scent of strange herbs and old magic. And then she saw it. A small, gnarled cottage almost swallowed by the ancient trees, a wisp of unnaturally colored smoke curling from its chimney. Maeve's lair. Her body moved on instinct, keeping low, using every bit of cover. She had to know what they were planning, especially with the blood moon, a time of potent werewolf magic, only weeks away. As the silence stretched, broken only by the thumping of her own heart, Lena crept closer. Through a grimy window pane, she could see Maeve moving within, her silhouette hunched over a table laden with strange symbols, bones, and glowing crystals. She heard Maeve's dry voice muttering, "The twins' impatience grows, but the blood moon's finality will seal it. No memory will remain. The alpha power will be his for the taking." Lena's blood ran cold. The blood moon! Damian wasn't just trying to keep Rafe's memory suppressed. He was planning something irreversible, something to steal Rafe's very essence, his alpha birthright. Before she could process the full horror, a black crow, perched on the cottage roof, let out a piercing caw, its head swiveling, its glittering black eyes seeming to fix directly on Lena's hiding spot. Maeve's head snapped up, her world tilted. She'd been sensed. Without thinking, Lena turned and fled. The witch's sharp, sudden laughter echoing behind her, a chilling promise of discovery. After that narrow escape from Maeve's lair, Lena knew the clock was ticking, fast, the blood moon. Maeve had said it would bring finality. Her goal was now urgent. She had to try something. Anything, to reach Rafe before then. Based on her frantic research into her mother's journals, which spoke of potent memory triggers tied to strong emotion and scent, she concocted a desperate plan. She gathered a few precious items, a small, worn wooden wolf Rafe had carved for her on their first anniversary, a sprig of the wild lavender that grew near their cabin, his favorite scent on her, and a single perfect eagle feather he'd found for her on a mountaintop. These weren't just things. They were echoes of their love, saturated with shared moments. Her emotional state was a frayed wire, hope battling stark terror. Could love truly be stronger than such dark magic? She had to believe it. So, one moonless night, when the pack was mostly asleep, Lena, cloaked in shadows, risked everything. Her immediate objective was to reach Rafe's new quarters near the Alpha's den where Damian now resided. A place heavily guarded by wolves loyal to the usurping twin. Her heart pounded so loudly she was sure every wolf in the territory could hear it. With every step she took, the scent of Damian's smug authority grew stronger, making her stomach churn. She felt it, clear as day. This was incredibly foolish. Yet, she pressed on. She found a loose board in the back wall of his cabin, a vulnerability she'd scouted earlier. Slipping inside, she saw him, Rafe, asleep in his bed. But his sleep was restless, his brow furrowed in a perpetual frown. Her chest ached. He looked so lost, so alone, even in sleep. Before she could move further, she carefully placed the carved wolf, the lavender, and the feather beside his pillow, her hand trembling as she did so, her deepest hope that their familiar scent, their embedded magic of shared love, would somehow pierce the darkness shrouding his mind. "Rafe," she whispered, her voice barely audible, thick with unshed tears. "Remember me. Please remember us." As if summoned by her plea, his eyes snapped open. For a breathtaking, heart-stopping instant, the moment their eyes locked, she saw him, her Rafe, a flicker of pure, undiluted recognition, of love, of her name forming on his lips. But then, a shadow fell across the doorway. Damian. His eyes were chips of ice. "Touching, little scholar," he drawled, his voice dripping with venom, but ultimately, futile. Between them, something cracked, the fragile connection shattered. Rafe's eyes clouded over again, confusion and a new, manipulated fear replacing the momentary light. Lena's gamble had failed, or so it seemed, and just like that, everything changed. Because Damian now knew she was actively trying to break his hold. What followed was a tense confrontation. Damian didn't raise his voice, didn't need to. His words were like poisoned darts. "You really should learn your place, Lena. He doesn't want you. Can't you see you're only making him worse with your obsessive attention?" He advanced on her, his identical features to Rafe a cruel mockery. "Perhaps a more permanent solution is needed for your interference." As fire bloomed beneath her skin, a surge of her latent hybrid power, pure protective fury, rose in Lena. A growl rose in her throat, shocking them both. Before either could speak further, Rafe, witnessing the raw aggression in Damian's stance towards Lena, let out a pained groan, his own wolf clearly agitated by the threat to someone he instinctively felt connected to, even if he didn't know why. This momentary distraction was all Lena needed. She ducked past Damian and fled into the night. Damian's cold laughter chasing her. The air thickened with her failure, but also with a new, terrifying awareness of Damian's ruthlessness and the strange power stirring within her. Days later, the blood moon finally rose, casting an ominous crimson glow over the Blackfang territory. This was it. Damian's moment of triumph. Lena, watching from a hidden vantage point high in the ancient oaks overlooking the ceremonial clearing, felt a cold dread. Her goal? Somehow to disrupt this ritual, to stop Damian from sealing Rafe's fate. The pack was gathered. Rafe stood beside Damian, pale and remote, like a beautiful statue, his eyes vacant. Maeve began her guttural chant, the air crackling with dark energy. Power, raw and corrupt, pulsed from the witch, flowing towards Damian, who seemed to swell with it, and then it flowed towards Rafe, who shuddered, a pained cry escaping his lips. In that moment, Lena couldn't bear it. Her wolf pressed forward, and she let it happen. All her fear, her love, her desperation coalesced into a singular point of focus. She poured her will, her nascent hybrid energy, towards Rafe, not knowing what she was doing, only that she had to reach him, to shield him, as if fate demanded it. Her unintentional magical intervention collided with Maeve's dark ritual. There was a blinding flash of emerald and gold light. A shockwave threw wolves off their feet. The tension broke. Rafe screamed, a sound of pure agony, but also of his name, Lena's name. It ripped through the clearing. When her name left his lips, a shared vision, bright and searing, slammed into Lena's mind, and she somehow knew, into Rafe's too, a flash of their first meeting, their first kiss, their vows under the summer moon. It was a torrent of stolen memories, beautiful and heartbreaking, unleashed for one brilliant, terrible instant. Her world tilted. The true depth of their bond, a thing Damian thought he could control, had fought back. Damian's plans were thrown into chaos. Maeve shrieked in fury. Something inside her shifted. Rafe collapsed. The effort of that momentary, soul-tearing breakthrough too much. The ritual was disrupted, not stopped, but altered. And the game had irrevocably changed. The stakes were now not just memory, but life, soul, and the very essence of alpha power. What's worse, or perhaps a blessing in disguise, Damian, enraged by the disruption and the exposure of Lena's unexpected power, immediately pointed a shaking finger at her, his voice thundering across the stunned silence. "She attacked him! The witch, Lena Petrovich, tried to kill my brother and steal the Alpha's blessing! Seize her!" Truth be told, some wolves, already swayed by Damian's charisma or fearful of the raw magic unleashed, began to advance. Lena's new, immediate goal was survival and protecting Rafe. Her instincts surged. She managed to create a diversion, a blast of uncontrolled energy that sent a dead tree crashing down. And in the ensuing chaos, she reached Rafe's side. He was unconscious, but his face, even in oblivion, seemed less tormented. As the forest watched, she half dragged, half carried him away from the clearing, a fugitive now, with the chilling howls of Damian's hunt beginning to echo behind them. She was no longer just a scholar fighting for a memory. She was a hunted hybrid, a desperate healer, with the fate of her unconscious true mate in her hands. In the stillness that followed their narrow escape, with the howls of Damian's hunt echoing like a death knell in the distance, Lena knew her previous attempts to reach Rafe were too small, too hesitant. Her goal had been to gently coax his memory back. Now it had to be a targeted strike, against the dark magic that held him captive. Truth be told, the brief shared vision during the blood moon ritual, the way Rafe had screamed her name, it was a fire in her soul. A confirmation that their bond, though buried deep, was not entirely extinguished. But then, there was the chilling reality of her own uncontrolled power that had erupted, the way Damian had immediately twisted it to make her a pariah. She didn't know what scared her more, failing Rafe, or what she might become if she fully unleashed the wild magic stirring in her blood. So, hidden deep in a forgotten cave her mother's journals had described, a place thrumming with old primal energies, Lena made a terrifying decision. Her new objective: to not just understand her hybrid powers, but to claim them, to wield them. "I have to," she whispered into the damp, echoing darkness, Rafe's unconscious form lying on a bed of moss and her own cloak beside her. "For you, my love. For us." Because of that resolve, she began a dangerous, solitary ritual outlined in the most arcane passages of the journals. It was a dance with shadows, a communion with the wolf spirit and the witch blood that warred and then began to merge within her. As fire bloomed beneath her skin, not in anger this time, but in a controlled burn, she felt it. A raw, untamed power, ancient and vast, answering her call, It was exhilarating. It was terrifying. Her wolf stirred, not with aggression, but with a new, keen awareness, her senses sharpening to an almost painful degree. The scent of the earth, the drip of water. Rafe's faint, beloved scent beside her, all magnified, all intensely real. Moments later, or perhaps hours, time seemed to warp in that charged space. She felt different, stronger, her mind clearer, yet also more attuned to the currents of the wild. Her next goal was to craft a conduit, a potion or an amulet, something potent enough to carry her intention, her love, her memory directly into Rafe's fractured mind. She worked for days, using the knowledge from the journals, her own scholarly precision, and the intuitive whispers of her newfound power. Eventually, she held it, a small, intricately woven charm of silver leaf and moon petal, pulsed with her own blood, and a desperate prayer. The air thickened around it, alive with her intent. From there, the challenge was reaching Rafe. Damian had him secured in the Alpha's den, a fortress now. No matter how hard she tried to find an unguarded approach, it seemed impossible. But then, a small mercy. A young pack wolf, Alara, whose own brother had once been wronged by Damian's ambition, found Lena. Alara's family had a secret, a story of an old escape tunnel leading into the den, a tale Lena's mother had once recorded. Maybe it was fate. Damian is not the true Alpha, Alara whispered, her eyes fierce. Rafe is. You are his mate. Our pack needs healing, not a tyrant. Which meant Lena now had a way in. That night, under a sky darkened by an impending storm, Lena, guided by Alara, navigated the tight, suffocating tunnel. Her heart was a wild thing in her chest. Her objective: administer the charm, break the curse. As the silence roared in the narrow passage, she focused on Rafe, on their love, pouring all her hope into the small charm clutched in her hand. She emerged into a small storage room adjoining Rafe's chamber. He was there, staring blankly at a wall, Damian's guards outside his door. Her breath caught. He looked even more haunted than before. Without another word, she slipped into the room. Rafe, she began, her voice trembling despite her resolve. He turned, his eyes empty. But then, as she held out the charm, with his scent in the air, his true scent, now amplified by her heightened senses and the charm's magic, his head snapped up. The moment their eyes locked, something happened. He didn't just see her. A flicker, a jolt of recognition, shot through his gaze. As the bond pulsed between them, raw and undeniable, he gasped, his hand flying to his head as if in agony. Lena, he choked out, the name a broken thing. Her heart skipped. Hope, fierce and bright, surged through her. A beat later, he began to thrash. Images, sounds, their memories, clearly warring with the dark magic that bound him. He cried out, "The ritual! Damian! He—" Without warning, the door burst open. Damian stood there, his face a mask of fury, Maeve smirking beside him. "Touching reunion," Damian sneered, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Did you really think it would be so easy, little scholar witch?" Something inside her shifted. This wasn't just a rescue, it was a trap. The space between them burned as Lena realized her mistake. Rafe, caught between the returning memories and Damian's immediate dominating presence, clutched his head, his eyes rolling back. Damian barked a command, a single, magically laced word. And just like that, everything changed. Rafe, his face suddenly slack, his eyes losing that spark of recognition, turned slowly towards Lena, not with love, not even with confusion, but with a chilling, blank obedience. "Stop her," Damian ordered Rafe, a cruel smile playing on his lips. Rafe advanced on Lena, his movements stiff, unnatural. Her chest ached. Damian was using Rafe, her Rafe, as a shield, as a weapon against her. She couldn't fight him. She wouldn't. The desperate gambit had shown her a glimmer of hope, only to plunge her into an even more impossible, heartbreaking reality. In the quiet that followed Damian's cruel command, Lena found herself backed against the cold stone wall of Rafe's chamber, her heart a wild, frantic bird trapped in her ribs. Her immediate goal? To somehow break Damian's hold on Rafe, to protect him, to protect herself. But then, Rafe. Her Rafe. His eyes now chillingly blank, his movements puppet-like, advanced. Each step he took towards her was a fresh tear in her already shredded soul. Rafe. No, she whispered, her voice trembling. It's me, Lena. Don't you remember? As if fate demanded it, her words seemed to find no purchase in his ensorcelled mind. He reached for her, not with love, but with a cold, mechanical purpose. She didn't know what scared her more, the emptiness in his eyes, or the smug, triumphant look on Damian's face as he watched, Maeve a silent, gloating shadow beside him. To make things worse, Damian wasn't content to just use Rafe as a puppet. Oh no, his plan was far more insidious. The blood moon approaches its zenith, my dear Lena, Damian purred, circling them like a patient predator. Tonight, I finally correct fate's little mistake. Tonight, I claim what should have always been mine, Rafe's alpha essence, his connection to this pack, and yes, even the echo of his bond with you. It will all fuel my ascension. Truth be told, Lena felt a cold dread. This wasn't just about memory anymore, this was about Damian consuming Rafe's very soul, his birthright. Because of that, her desperation intensified. She had to stop him, not just for Rafe's mind, but for his very existence. As the sky outside pulsed with the crimson light of the true blood moon, Damian and Maeve began the final, horrifying ritual right there in the den. Rafe was forced onto his knees in the center of a new, hastily drawn circle of dark, viscous symbols that seemed to writhe like living things. He was bound with chains that glowed with a sickly, suppressive magic. Lena's goal was now singular, desperate. Stop the ritual, save Rafe. No matter the cost to herself, she unleashed her hybrid powers, a whirlwind of wind and shadow, her wolf's snarl mixing with the crackle of witchfire from her fingertips. She fought Maeve, their magics clashing like thunder and lightning, the very air in the den vibrating with the force of their battle. With every heartbeat, Lena pushed, her love for Rafe a burning inferno fueling her. She saw through the haze of battle, Rafe straining against his bonds, his eyes fixed on her, a terrible anguish in their depths. And then, as she managed to land a powerful blow against Maeve, sending the witch staggering back, Rafe cried out, fragments of images, their first meeting, their laughter, his hand in hers, seemed to flash around him, visible only to Lena, like ghosts of their stolen past. He was fighting. His soul was fighting. But then, Damian, seeing his ritual faltering, his prize perhaps slipping away, snarled in pure rage. If I cannot have his power whole, he screamed, his handsome face contorted into a mask of pure malice, then neither will she have him. He redirected the churning vortex of dark energy, not towards Rafe, but towards Lena, a lethal curse designed to shatter her mind, to break her spirit, to leave her an empty shell, without warning. Just as the dark magic arrowed towards her, Rafe roared. It wasn't the sound of a confused wolf. It was the roar of an alpha, of a mate, of a man whose soul had, in that final, desperate second, remembered everything. In the span of a breath, he shattered his magical bonds with a strength that should have been impossible. Her world tilted. Before she could move, before she could even scream his name again, he launched himself in front of her, just like that. He took the full, horrifying force of Damian's curse. A blinding, sickening green light enveloped him, and then... silence. The light faded. Rafe lay crumpled on the floor, his body still. Too still. As the silence stretched, Lena stumbled towards him, her legs barely holding her. She fell to her knees beside him, her hands reaching out, trembling. His eyes, those beautiful amber eyes, found hers, and they were clear, full of love, full of him. When her name left his lips, it was a whisper, a sigh, a final loving caress. Lena, I remember everything, he breathed, a faint, heartbreaking smile touching his lips. I love you. And then, his eyes fluttered closed, his chest, which had risen with that last precious breath, stilled. Her heart skipped, then shattered. In the quiet that followed, Lena held Rafe's lifeless body, her world not just broken, but annihilated. The vibrant forest, the thrumming packlands, her own future, all turned to ash. Damian stood panting, his ritual incomplete but a savage triumph gleaming in his eyes. Well, he said, his voice still rough, not the outcome I preferred, but his alpha essence is untethered now. And you, my dear Lena, are alone. Maeve, recovering, looked on with a strange expression, perhaps a flicker of fear at the utter devastation in Lena's eyes, or perhaps just cold satisfaction. Deep down, she knew the truth. This was her lowest point. Her Rafe was gone. The love she fought for, the bond that defined her, had been extinguished. Her powers, which had surged so mightily, now felt like a cruel mockery, useless against the finality of death. Her thoughts spun into a vortex of pain so profound it was a silent scream that consumed her very being. As the echo faded of Rafe's last words, his name a permanent brand on her soul, she was left in the crushing, absolute darkness of all being lost. In the stillness that followed Rafe's last breath, something inside Lena shattered and then reformed into something hard, unyielding, deadly. The raw, keening grief didn't vanish. Oh no. It was a cold, dense star in her chest, radiating an icy fury instead of heat. Damian's mocking words, "You, my dear Lena, are alone," echoed in the suffocating silence of the den. Alone. Perhaps, but defeated. Never. Her bones remembered him. Rafe's final words, "I remember everything. I love you," weren't just an ending. They were a testament, a weapon. His sacrifice, an ultimate act of love, became her shield and her sword. Deep down, she knew the truth. Her fight wasn't over. It had merely transformed. Her goal was no longer just to reclaim him, but to avenge him. And, if the moon goddess and her own treacherous bloodline allowed, to defy death itself, as if fate whispered it. Her gaze fell upon her mother's journals cast aside during the earlier struggle. One page lay open, a passage circled in faded ink, speaking of the Echo Resurrectus, a forbidden ritual, a ritual of ultimate sacrifice, a soul for a soul, or perhaps power for a soul. It was a desperate gamble, a whisper of lore so dangerous most believed it myth. But then, what did she have left to lose? Her thoughts spun, coalescing into a chilling, audacious plan. Her transformation from grieving mate to avenging queen was almost palpable. As her wolf stirred within, not with wildness, but with a cold, predatory focus, she carefully, reverently, laid Rafe's body upon the central dais where Damian had meant to steal his essence. His scent, pine and winter earth, still clung to him. A heartbreaking reminder. Next, Lena rose. Her hybrid powers, which had felt so useless moments before, now flaring around her not with chaotic energy, but with a controlled, deadly intent. She faced Damian and a wary Maeve. Damian was still gloating, believing he'd won, that Rafe's untethered alpha essence was now his for the taking. "Still here, little scholar?" he sneered, his charisma a vile mockery. "Come to beg for your pathetic life?" Lena's voice, when it came, was low, devoid of its earlier warmth, sharp as obsidian. "No, Damian," she said, and the air in the den seemed to drop several degrees. "I've come to offer you a choice." Her instincts surged. This was it. A choice? Damian laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. "You have nothing left to bargain with." "Oh, but I do," Lena countered, her eyes, now perhaps glowing faintly with her contained power, never leaving his. "Rafe's alpha essence. It's untethered, as you said, but it's still tied to his spirit, to our bond. You can't fully claim it while his spirit lingers." This was a bluff, a half-truth woven from lore and desperate hope. "I, however, with my unique heritage," she let a flicker of witchfire dance on her fingertips, "can sever that final tie. I can help you claim it all, Damian. Truly make it yours." She felt it, clear as day, Maeve's sudden, sharp intake of breath. The old witch knew the kind of deep magic Lena was hinting at. Because of that, a flicker of greed, then suspicion, then pure, unadulterated avarice warred on Damian's face. "And what, little witch wolf?" he asked, his voice a silky caress that didn't fool her for a second. "Would you ask in return for such generosity?" Lena's smile was a chilling thing. "His body," she said softly. "Give me Rafe's body to mourn, to bury according to the old ways. And your word, an alpha's binding vow, witnessed by Maeve and the blood moon, that you will never harm another soul I care for, starting with Alara and her family." She didn't know what scared her more, the lie she was spinning, or the terrifying possibility that part of this forbidden ritual might actually work. But then, Damian, blinded by the prospect of ultimate power, began to consider it. The lure of Rafe's full alpha essence, purified, untainted by a lingering spirit. It was too tempting. "A vow for a vow, then, little niece," Maeve interjected, her eyes glittering. "You perform your severance, and Damian gets his power. You get the body. A clean exchange." As the wind shifted outside, carrying the scent of blood and magic, Lena knew she had them. So, the perverse covenant was struck. While the forest held its breath, Lena began the ritual of severance, her movements precise, her voice chanting words of power that made the very stones of the den vibrate. Damian watched, his eyes alight with feverish anticipation. Maeve observed, a predatory stillness about her. But then, as Lena's chant reached its crescendo, as the truth unraveled, it became terrifyingly clear this was no severance. This was something else. The energy she was drawing, the symbols she was tracing with Rafe's blood mixed with her own, weren't about releasing his spirit for Damian. They were about calling it back, about weaving a lifeline from her own power, her own life force, directly into Rafe's stilled heart. Between them, something cracked, not a bond breaking, but a new one forging in fire and sacrifice. Damian roared in betrayal and fury as he realized the deception. "You tricked me, witch!" The tension broke. He lunged, Maeve scrambling to aid him, her own spells flying. With a single glance at Rafe's peaceful face, Lena met their combined assault. Her objective not just to defeat them, but to buy enough time, to pour enough of herself into the ritual, to complete the Echo Resurrectus. The final battle for Rafe's soul, and her own, had begun. As the echoes of Damian's betrayed roar filled the den, the final battle ignited, a desperate, brutal ballet of magic and fury. Lena's objective was twofold: end Damian's reign of terror, and buy precious seconds for the forbidden ritual she was weaving around Rafe's still form. With every heartbeat, power, wild, ancient, drawn from her dual heritage, surged through her. It was a living storm. She moved like a wraith, a blur of focused rage and desperate love, her every strike against Damian precise, her defenses against Maeve's panicked hexes instinctual. The air crackled, thick with the scent of ozone, wolf musk, and spilled blood. Damian, fueled by stolen whispers of Rafe's alpha essence and his own bottomless ambition, was a terrifying force. His claws, identical to Rafe's, tore at her, his snarls promising oblivion. But then, Lena wasn't just a scholar anymore. Oh no, She was a mate avenging her fallen, a mother wolf protecting her hope. "You can't win, witch," Damian snarled, lunging. "His power will be mine. You will be mine." Lena sidestepped, her own power lashing out like a silver whip. "You'll have nothing, Damian," she bit out, her voice a low, dangerous thrum. "Nothing, but the ashes of your pathetic envy." As if fate demanded it, she saw an opening. Her wolf pressed forward, and she let it happen. With a cry that was both wolf howl and witch's incantation, she unleashed a torrent of her hybrid energy, a concentrated blast that caught Damian square in the chest. He flew backwards, slamming into the far wall with a sickening thud. His eyes wide with shock and disbelief before a strange dark light consumed him. And then, he was simply gone. Vanished. As if the ancient magic of the den itself, or perhaps Rafe's lingering protective spirit, had judged him and found him wanting. Maeve, seeing her champion defeated, shrieked once and dissolved into a vortex of shadows, her power broken. Just like that. It was over. The physical threat, at least. But then, Lena wasted no time. Without another word, she turned to Rafe. The true battle, the one that would cost her everything, had just begun. Her goal now, to pull his soul back from the brink. She knelt, pressing her hands to his still chest, the symbols she'd drawn earlier now glowing with an almost unbearable light. The words of the Echo Resurrectus, words that tasted of ash and starlight, poured from her lips. As fire bloomed beneath her skin, she felt her power, her precious, newly awakened hybrid magic, her wolf spirit, her witch lineage, draining from her, a torrent flowing into Rafe. It was an agony unlike any she'd ever known, a hollowing out of her very essence. She saw glimpses, her heightened senses dimming, the vibrant colors of magic fading from her sight, the fierce thrum of her inner wolf quieting to a whisper. Then, silence. Her voice trembled, but she didn't stop the chant. This was her choice, her sacrifice for him, for them. As the silence roared around the last dying note of the ritual, she felt the final wisp of her extraordinary power leave her. And then, darkness claimed her as she collapsed beside him, utterly spent. In the quiet that followed, a single, shuddering gasp cut through the stillness. Rafe's eyes flew open. He sat bolt upright, his amber gaze sharp, clear, and, oh, moon goddess, filled with her, with all their shared memories. He saw Lena, pale and fragile beside him, and the horrifying understanding of what she had done, what he had done, slammed into him. "Lena!" His voice was raw, a choked cry of agony and dawning, unbearable gratitude. He scrambled to her side, gathering her limp form into his arms. Her chest ached just to breathe. The moment their eyes locked, she saw it all. His love, his horror, his complete understanding. He remembered everything. Her bones remembered him. What followed was the arrival of the pack, drawn by the cessation of the battle and the shift in power. Ilara was at the forefront, her eyes wide as she took in the scene. Damian gone. Maeve vanished. Rafe alive and cradling a visibly weakened Lena. As the truth unraveled, as Rafe, his voice thick with emotion, explained Lena's sacrifice, a wave of awe and then fierce loyalty rippled through the wolves. They had their true alpha back, resurrected by the ultimate act of a mate's love. That's why they knelt, one by one, not just to Rafe, but to the human woman who had sacrificed her very magic for him. Months later, a new dawn had truly settled over the Blackfang pack. Rafe, now the undisputed alpha, led with a wisdom and compassion forged in fire and loss. His primary goal? The pack's well-being. And Lena's happiness. And Lena, she was by his side. His queen. She was human now, her extraordinary hybrid powers gone. A constant gentle ache in her soul, a reminder of their price. Yet, she had never felt stronger, never felt more cherished. Her emotional state was one of quiet peace, her intellect and courage her enduring strengths revered by the pack. Their love, once a brilliant wild flame, was now a deep, steady hearth, warming everyone it touched. More importantly, it was a love story that became legend. One evening, as the sky darkened and the first stars pricked the velvet expanse, they sat on the porch of their rebuilt cabin. Lena leaned against Rafe, his arms securely around her. In her lap, a small bundle cooed. Their daughter. Her eyes a startling, familiar amber. And sometimes, just sometimes, Lena thought she saw a faint, silvery shimmer around the child's tiny fingers, a whisper of magic, an echo of a sacrifice, as if fate whispered. Rafe nuzzled Lena's hair, his voice a low rumble against her ear. "You gave up everything for me, my heart." Lena smiled, turning to kiss him softly. "No, my love," she murmured, her voice filled with a serene certainty. "I gained everything." And just like that, everything changed, because their bond, tested by stolen memories, by death, by the ultimate sacrifice, was now truly, unbreakably, eternal. Epilogue. 5 blood moons had waxed and waned since the night the forest held its breath, the night a love thought lost and was reborn from sacrifice. 5 years. And with each passing season, the Blackfang pack had thrived, not just survived. Under Alpha Rafe's steady, compassionate guidance, a leadership tempered by the memory of loss and the miracle of reclamation, and with Lena, his queen, ever by his side, they found a new kind of strength. A strength rooted not in brute power or ancient, dark rituals, but in loyalty, in community, in a love that had stared into the abyss and chosen light. Lena often walked the familiar paths near their rebuilt cabin. The air still smelled of pine and winter earth, Rafe's scent, a constant, comforting presence. She was human now, truly human. The wild thrum of her hybrid powers was a memory, a bittersweet ache sometimes when the moon was full, or when she saw their children playing. Yes, children. 2 of them. Young Cale, with his father's sturdy build and a laugh that echoed Rafe's own, and little Lyra, their youngest, whose eyes held that startling, familiar amber, and whose tiny fingers sometimes seemed to shimmer with a faint, silvery light when she was particularly happy, or particularly cross. A whisper of magic, an echo of what had been given. Lena would smile then, a soft, knowing smile. Some gifts, she knew, were too powerful to ever truly vanish. They just changed form. Her days were filled, not with the frantic desperation of before, but with the gentle rhythm of pack life. Her scholarly mind now turned to healing, to teaching the young ones, to advising Rafe with a wisdom that came not just from books, but from scars, seen and unseen. She no longer wielded overt magic. But then, her presence, her quiet strength, the story of her sacrifice whispered in hushed, reverent tones by the elders. That was a magic all its own. It bound the pack together. It reminded them of what truly mattered. That night, under the full, benevolent gaze of the moon goddess, Rafe found her by the Whispering Falls, the place where she'd once seen Damian and Maeve plotting. A place now cleansed, reclaimed by peace. He came up behind her, his strong arms wrapping around her waist, pulling her back against his solid warmth. He didn't need to speak. The moment their eyes locked in the moon's reflection on the water, their bond pulsed between them, no longer a volatile, magical torrent, but a deep, steady river of shared history, of unwavering love. "Thinking, my heart?" Rafe murmured, his lips brushing her temple. His scent was still her sanctuary. Lena leaned back into him, a sigh of contentment escaping her. "Just remembering," she whispered, "and being grateful." He held her tighter. "I am the one who is grateful, Lena. Every day. For every breath." His voice was thick with an emotion that 5 years had not dimmed. He remembered everything: the joy, the theft, the agony, and her impossible, beautiful sacrifice. As the silence stretched, comfortable and profound, Lena turned in his arms to face him. Under the weight of his stare, a stare that still held all the adoration of their first sunlit days, she saw their journey, there forever. "We made it, Rafe," she said softly. "We did, my brave scholar," he answered, his own eyes shimmering. "We always will." And then he kissed her, a kiss that tasted of pine, of winter earth, of shared memories, and of a love that had not only conquered betrayal and death, but had blossomed into something even more profound in the quiet peace that followed the storm. An enduring echo, made whole.